action we perform online is tracked, and all things digital attempt to distance us from the body and physical disintegration, it is perhaps not so surprising that our fascination with the utterly abandoned, the long unobserved, the decayed and the ruin has increased exponentially. That picture of a weed-infested factory or decaying mansion in Detroit or St. Louis, say, will frequently have their greatest currency on Instagram or other social media sites only reaffirms, rather than contradicts, a particular contemporary desire to seek out the obscure and the unburnished. The Atlas of Improbable Places, then, is intended as a compendium of unlikely, curious and plain odd locales. The improbability factor, if you will, of each of these places was that they were distinguished by some element of their architecture, natural geography, or present or past state of being. Improbability may have been inherent at the beginning, or thrust upon them later, or only accrued in recent times. But these places all have stories to tell us. The map may not be the territory, just as written history is not the sum of any individual place. But ideally, we need to read them both to reach a greater understanding of where we are and where we might be going. Dream Creations. Flevopolder, the region reclaimed from the sea. Lelystad, Netherlands. Latitude 52 degrees, 30 minutes and 0 seconds north. Longitude 5 degrees, 28 minutes and 0 seconds east. For nearly 2,000 years, the occupants of what is today the Netherlands have been locked into an almost Sisyphean battle to hold back and reclaim land from the sea. Traces of this struggle can be detected in the remains of ancient turpen or earth mounds that still survive in certain parts of the country. Dating from around 500 BC, these edifices, along with earthen dikes, served as the most basic bulwark against flooding for the earliest settlers to these often sodden lands. But such defences alone could hardly be expected to halt the advances of a rampaging North Sea. And a series of particularly savage storms in the 11th and 12th centuries led to the deaths from drowning of tens of thousands and water permanently claiming huge swathes of the northern coast. One beneficiary of these topographical changes, however, was the estuary town of Amsterdam, which suddenly found itself with a direct route to the ocean and subsequently developed into a major port and finally wound up as the capital city. Still, the story of this country, over half of which presently lies below sea level, is as much about land gain as loss. God, it is said, may have created the world, but the Dutch gave the world the Netherlands. Around 10% of the country is made up of bits that were once underwater, and much of the rest of it would be too, but for an extensive network of canals, dams, drains and dikes that were begun in the Middle Ages. By the 15th century, the Dutch had developed a highly sophisticated hydro-engineering system, one that involved using encircling dikes and water-pumping windmills, hence their ubiquity in this landscape, to drain quite substantial tranches of saturated ground and complete ponds, rivers and lakes. The resulting drain lands, known as polders, could then be used for farming and building on. This technique would reach its pinnacle in the latter half of the 20th century with the creation of Flevoland, a cluster of polders that make up the Netherlands' 12th and newest province. It's also the world's largest artificial island. Flevoland represents the fulfillment of an ambition long held by Dutch civil engineers to tame the Zuider Zee, or South Sea. Once an estuary of the River Rhine, it had, through storms and by a process of natural erosion, become an inland sea that seemed bent on only further extending its extent. The first proposal to close it off and drain the land came in 1667 from the pioneering hydrologist Heinrich Stevens.